I pulled over my husband's car at 2:17 in the morning. At first, I didn't recognize his face. I only saw a black Ford Explorer make a sharp turn without signaling. Then I noticed a woman's hand resting on his shoulder. And a few seconds later, I realized my husband was behind the wheel. In that moment, it felt like all of Texas stopped breathing. I was sitting in my patrol car on the shoulder of a dark road near San Antonio. Hot night air hung over the highway, even though it was already October. The radio crackled softly. Somewhere ahead, the lights of a gas station flickered. I was supposed to just do my job. My name is Lauren Mitchell. I was 38 years old. At that point, I had already served 11 years in law enforcement. I had seen crashes, domestic violence, drunk drivers, robberies, lies, tears, and people swearing that things were not what they looked like. I had learned not to believe words right away. But somehow, at home, I forgot that rule. My husband, Daniel, was everyone's good guy. That was what the neighbors said. That was what my parents said. That was what his clients said, because he worked as a financial consultant and always wore expensive shirts with perfectly pressed collars. He knew how to speak calmly. He knew how to look straight into your eyes. He knew how to make you feel ashamed of your own suspicions. That night, I was patrolling near Loop 410. The shift had been mostly quiet. 2 traffic stops, 1 noise complaint, 1 drunk guy outside a bar. I was already thinking about coffee, a shower, and how I would quietly walk into the house without waking our 12-year-old daughter, Emma. Daniel was supposed to be home. He had texted me at 10:43 p.m. I'm going to bed. Long day. Love you. I answered with a heart. Just a heart. Because I was on duty and I didn't want to keep texting. And at 2:17 in the morning, I saw his car. It pulled out of the parking lot of a small motel I knew well. Not because I had ever stayed there myself, but because we got calls from that place all the time. Arguments. Suspicious payments. People without IDs. Sometimes women crying on the stairs while men ran out through the back exit. The Explorer turned onto the road too fast. The driver crossed the lane and almost clipped the curb. I switched on my lights automatically, without even thinking. The car slowed down. I remember my fingers tightening around the steering wheel. Not from fear. From some strange cold feeling inside me. I didn't know yet that it was him. But something in me had already gone tense. I stepped out of my patrol car. My flashlight slid over the rear window, the license plate, the trunk. The plate was ours. Our family plate. The same one I saw every morning in the driveway beside our house. For 1 second, I stopped breathing. I walked up to the driver's window and tapped on the glass. The window rolled down. Daniel looked at me like he had seen a ghost. His face was pale. His lips were dry. Sweat shined across his forehead, even though the air conditioning was blowing full blast. A young woman was sitting beside him. She looked about 27 or 28. Long dark hair, a red dress under a black coat, a small gold purse resting on her lap. She did not look scared. If anything, she looked at me carefully, almost with curiosity, like she already knew who I was. Lauren, Daniel said very quietly. I heard my name, and it hit harder than any confession could have. Not officer. Not good evening. Just my name. I forced myself to stand straight. I was in uniform. My badge was on my chest. My body camera was recording every movement, every word, every second of my humiliation. Driver's license and proof of insurance, please, I said. My voice sounded calm. Too calm, maybe. That was how people spoke when they were afraid they would fall apart if they allowed even one emotion through. Daniel blinked. Lauren, this isn't what you think. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was the oldest line in the world. I had heard it from men in parking lots, in motels, in other people's kitchens after midnight. And now my husband was saying it to me. Documents, I repeated. The woman beside him slowly turned her head toward him. You didn't tell her? She asked. My stomach seemed to drop through the floor. Daniel shot her a sharp look. Melanie, be quiet. Melanie. I did not know any Melanie. With trembling hands, he pulled out his wallet. His documents fell near his feet. He bent down, picked them up, then handed them to me. I took his license, even though I knew every letter of his name. Daniel Ryan Mitchell. My husband. The father of my child. The man who had texted me that night saying he was going to bed. I took one step back and walked toward my patrol car. I needed to run the plate. I needed to follow procedure. I needed not to become just a wife who had been betrayed on the side of a dark road. When I sat behind the wheel, my hands finally started shaking. I entered the information into the system. And then I saw the first strange thing. The car was not registered only to Daniel. A lien notice appeared in the system, one I had never seen before. Then an overdue payment flag. Then another record tied to a financial company in Dallas. I leaned closer to the screen. The company name felt familiar. I had seen it on an envelope a few weeks earlier, the one Daniel had snatched from my hands by the mailbox. Back then, he said it was a bank mistake. He smiled, kissed my temple. And I, a police officer with 11 years of experience, believed him. My radio crackled again. But I no longer heard the dispatcher. I stared at the screen and felt betrayal slowly turn into something much more terrifying. Because this was not only about the woman in the passenger seat. It was about debt. About documents. About our house. And about the fact that Daniel might not have been lying to me for a few hours. He might have been lying to me for years. I lifted my eyes toward his car. Melanie sat perfectly still. Daniel was staring into the rearview mirror, looking straight at me. And for the first time in 16 years of marriage, I saw something in his eyes that was not love, not guilt, and not even fear. I saw calculation. Then a new alert appeared on the database screen. Short. Cold. Like a sentence being handed down. Possible suspicion of financial fraud. My fingers went cold. Because in the section marked connected individuals, his name was not the only one listed. Mine was there too. And if this story has already pulled you in, subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. There is more truth, more pain, and more life-changing decisions ahead. I stared at my name on that screen. For a moment, I told myself it had to be a mistake. Maybe the system pulled up shared insurance information. Maybe it connected me because we were married. Maybe there was some harmless explanation waiting behind the panic. But deep down, I knew better. In my job, harmless explanations usually came first. Dangerous ones came after people started sweating. And Daniel was sweating. I looked through the windshield of my patrol car. His Explorer sat 30 feet ahead, parked under the flashing red and blue lights. Melanie had turned slightly toward him. Her lips were moving fast. Daniel shook his head once, hard, like he was warning her to stop. That was the second red flag. Not the motel. Not the woman. Not even the lie about being asleep. It was the way they looked like partners in something. I radioed dispatch and kept my voice steady. Unit 27. I need a secondary at my location. The dispatcher answered, calm and routine. Copy, Unit 27. Is everything okay? I hesitated for half a second. That half second felt like betrayal too. Because I didn't want another officer seeing this. I didn't want my marriage spread across the department before sunrise. I didn't want whispers in the break room or pity in the parking lot. But I also knew one thing clearly. A woman in uniform cannot let shame make decisions for her. Possible financial fraud flag on the vehicle, I said. Driver is cooperative, but I want backup. My voice did not crack. I was proud of that later. At the time, I felt nothing but a hard pressure behind my ribs. I stepped out again and walked back to the Explorer. Daniel watched me coming. His face had changed. The shock was gone now. He looked calmer, almost too calm, like he had found the right mask. Melanie turned her eyes toward the dark road. Daniel, I said, I need you to step out of the vehicle. He gave a small, nervous laugh. Lauren, come on. You don't have to do this. I looked at him through the open window. Step out of the vehicle. His jaw tightened. For a second, I saw the real Daniel. Not the warm husband who made pancakes on Sunday mornings. Not the father who helped Emma with math homework. Not the man who held my hand at my father's funeral. I saw someone cornered. And cornered people tell you more with their silence than with their words. He opened the door slowly and got out. His shirt was half untucked beneath his jacket. There was a faint smear of lipstick near his collar. Not bright. Not obvious. Just enough to make my stomach twist. I asked him to stand near the rear bumper. Melanie stayed inside the car. She kept looking at her phone. I noticed her thumb moving quickly over the screen. Too quickly. "Ma'am," I said, leaning toward the passenger window. "Put the phone down, please." She froze. Then she smiled. It was small, polite, and completely wrong for the moment. "I'm just texting my sister," she said. "Put it down." Her smile faded. She placed the phone face down on her purse, but not before I saw the name at the top of the message thread. D, not Daniel. Just D. That should have meant nothing. But something about it felt practiced. Like they had rules. Like they had done this before and knew how to hide in plain sight. My backup arrived 4 minutes later. Officer Harris pulled in behind me, lights flashing. He had worked with me for 6 years and knew Daniel personally. I saw the confusion on his face the moment he recognized the explorer. Then he saw Daniel. Then he saw me. To his credit, he didn't ask any personal questions. He walked up slowly and said, "What do we have?" "Vehicle flagged for possible financial fraud," I said. "Lien issue, overdue payment, connected names. I'm going to document and release unless there's an active warrant." Daniel turned toward me fast. "Release," he said. "Lauren, this is insane. You're treating me like a criminal." I looked at him. "No, I'm treating this like a traffic stop." His face reddened. Melanie gave a quiet laugh from inside the car. Harris heard it too. That laugh changed the air. It was not nervous. It was not embarrassed. It sounded like someone who knew a secret and enjoyed watching it burn somebody else. I asked Harris to stay with Daniel while I ran Melanie's ID. She handed it over without arguing, but her fingers were cold when they brushed mine. Melanie Carter, 28. Dallas address. No warrants. But there was a business attached to her name. Carter Lifestyle Consulting LLC. My eyes stayed on the screen. That name was also connected to the financial company from Dallas. The same company tied to the lien. The same company Daniel said was a bank mistake. My mouth went dry. I opened the vehicle notes again and scrolled lower. There were 2 missed payments. 1 modification request. 1 pending review. Then a document code I recognized from mortgage fraud cases. I had seen it before. It usually meant someone had used altered income statements. My heartbeat began to pound in my ears. I thought about our house. The yellow kitchen. Emma's bedroom with the glow-in-the-dark stars. The backyard where Daniel built a swing set when she was 5 and still called me mommy with both hands around my neck. That house was the only place I had ever allowed myself to feel safe. Now there was a paper trail wrapped around it. And my name was inside that trail. I walked back to Daniel. "What did you sign with Melanie Carter?" I asked quietly. His eyes flicked toward her window. That tiny movement told me everything. "Nothing," he said. I held up his license between 2 fingers. "Try again." His face hardened. "You don't understand what you're looking at." I almost whispered, "Then explain it." For the first time that night, he looked tired. "Not sorry. Just tired of hiding." "It was supposed to be temporary," he said. The words hit me slowly. Temporary. That was the word people used when they had already crossed the line. Temporary loan. Temporary lie. Temporary affair. Temporary damage. But damage does not care what you meant. Before I could ask another question, Melanie opened the passenger door. Harris turned toward her. "Ma'am, stay in the vehicle." She ignored him and looked straight at me. "You really should talk to your husband at home," she said. "Because once you put this in a report, you lose more than he does." The road went silent. Even the radio seemed to pause. Daniel whispered her name like a warning. But she kept staring at me. And then she said the sentence that made the whole night tilt sideways. "Ask him whose signature is on the mortgage papers." Ask him whose signature is on the mortgage papers. For a second, I could not move. The words hung between us under the flashing lights. Daniel stared at Melanie like she had pulled a gun. Officer Harris shifted his weight beside the patrol car. And I felt something inside me go completely still. Not calm. Still. There is a difference. Calm means you're in control. Still means your mind is trying to survive what your heart already understands. I looked at Daniel. "What mortgage papers?" I asked. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Melanie gave a small shrug, like she had only mentioned the weather. I thought she knew, she said. Daniel snapped, "Get back in the car." His voice was low, but sharp enough to cut through the night. That was when Harris stepped closer. "Sir, lower your voice." Daniel blinked, as if he suddenly remembered where he was. On a roadside, in front of two officers, with his wife wearing a badge and a body camera. He looked at me again, softer now. "Lauren, please," he said. "Not here." That was the first time he sounded afraid. And somehow, that scared me more. I wanted to demand every answer right there. I wanted to ask why Melanie knew about our mortgage. I wanted to ask why my name was tied to a fraud alert. I wanted to ask how many nights he had lied beside me while our daughter slept down the hall. But I knew the rules. I was too close to this. Too angry. Too hurt. Too personally involved. So I did what my training told me to do, even while my chest felt like it was splitting open. I documented the stop. I noted the vehicle flag. I recorded Melanie's information. I requested that the alert be forwarded for review. Then, because there was no active warrant, no immediate probable cause for arrest, and no visible crime I could act on that night, I released them. I watched my husband drive away with another woman in his passenger seat. That sentence still feels unreal. The Explorer pulled onto the road slowly this time. Melanie did not look back. Daniel did. Just once. His eyes found mine through the rear window, and I understood something painful. He was not wondering if I would forgive him. He was wondering what I could prove. Harris stood beside me in silence. He had always been kind, but that night kindness felt dangerous. One gentle word would have broken me. Finally, he said, "Lauren, do you want me to call Sergeant Mills?" I nodded. I could not trust myself to speak. By 4:10 in the morning, I was sitting in my sergeant's office with a paper cup of burned station coffee between my hands. The room smelled like old files, disinfectant, and rain that had not yet fallen. Sergeant Mills listened without interrupting. He was a heavy-set man in his 50s with tired eyes and a voice that rarely rose above a low growl. He had seen officers cry, rage, lie, and collapse. Nothing shocked him easily. But when I said Melanie's name and the mortgage fraud flag, he leaned back slowly. "You are not touching this case," he said. "I know. I mean it, Mitchell." I said I know. My voice came out harder than I intended. He studied me for a moment. Then his face softened just enough. "You need to go home. Get your daughter. Secure your documents. And call an attorney before you talk to your husband." That last sentence made my stomach twist. An attorney. Not a counselor. Not a friend. Not a pastor. An attorney. Because whatever Daniel had done, it was no longer just a marriage problem. It was a legal problem. I drove home as the sky started turning gray over San Antonio. The streets looked normal. Sprinklers clicked over front lawns. A school bus groaned around the corner. Someone jogged with a golden retriever like the world had not cracked open before sunrise. Our house looked exactly the same. That almost made it worse. The porch light was still on. Emma's bike leaned against the garage. A pumpkin she had painted for Halloween sat near the door, smiling with crooked white teeth. I sat in the driveway for almost a full minute. Then I went inside. Daniel was not there. Of course he was not there. His side of the closet was half empty. Not empty enough to look planned. Empty enough to look rushed. 2 suitcases were gone. His laptop was gone. The drawer where he kept passports was open. Mine was still there. Emma's was not. That was the moment I stopped feeling like a betrayed wife. I became a mother. I ran to Emma's room. She was asleep, curled under a blue blanket, one hand tucked beneath her cheek. Her phone was charging on the nightstand. Her school backpack sat open on the floor with a math worksheet sticking out. I touched her shoulder gently. "Baby," I whispered. "Wake up." She blinked, confused and warm from sleep. "Mom?" I kept my voice soft. "We're going to Grandma's for a little while." She sat up slowly. "Is Dad coming?" The question hit me so hard I almost had to look away. "No," I said. "Not right now." She looked at my uniform, then at my face. "Kids know. Even when you try to protect them, they know. While Emma packed a small bag, I went straight to the office. Daniel's desk was neat, as always. Too neat. The kind of neat that hides panic under straight lines. I opened drawers, checked folders, looked behind tax files and old insurance papers. Nothing. Then I remembered the attic. Daniel hated the attic. Said it was too hot, too dusty, too full of things we should have thrown away years ago. But 2 months earlier, I had seen him come down from there carrying a black binder. At the time, I thought it was old work stuff. Now I knew better. I pulled the ladder down and climbed up with my flashlight. Dust floated through the beam. Boxes of Christmas decorations leaned against plastic bins. Emma's old baby clothes sat in a taped-up container near the wall. Behind it was a black binder. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were copies of loan documents, business filings, bank statements, and pages with yellow sticky notes in Daniel's handwriting. Then I saw my name, Lauren and Mitchell, over and over, on loan applications, on income verification forms, on a home equity line of credit I had never seen. And at the bottom of one page was a signature that looked almost exactly like mine. Almost, but not quite. I knew my own handwriting. I knew the way my L curved too sharply, the way I crossed my T's too low when I was tired. This signature was close enough to fool a stranger. Not close enough to fool me. I turned the next page and saw Melanie Carter's company listed as a consulting recipient. Amount paid, $48,000. My vision blurred. $48,000 had moved through our home, our marriage, our future. And I had been packing school lunches, working night shifts, and trusting a man who kissed my forehead while stealing the ground beneath my feet. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. A woman's voice came through, quiet and rushed. Officer Mitchell? I froze. Yes. My name is Rachel. I used to work with Melanie Carter. My fingers tightened around the phone. You need to listen carefully, she said. Your husband is not the first. I looked down at the binder in my lap. Then Rachel said the words that made my blood turn cold. And if he has your daughter's passport, he may already be planning to leave Texas. And if he has your daughter's passport, he may already be planning to leave Texas. I stopped breathing. The attic suddenly felt too small, too hot, too quiet, like the walls had moved closer while I was reading. I pressed the phone harder against my ear. What are you talking about? I asked. Rachel's voice dropped lower. Melanie helps men move money before divorces, lawsuits, bankruptcy, whatever they're running from. She calls it consulting. It's not consulting. My eyes went back to the binder. Loan documents. Business filings. My forged signature. $48,000 sent to Melanie's company. I wanted to believe Rachel was exaggerating. I wanted one small piece of this nightmare to be less ugly than it looked. But then she said Daniel's name like she had known it for months. He told Melanie he was trapped in a marriage, Rachel said. He said you controlled everything because you were a cop. He said he needed time to get his life back. A bitter laugh rose in my throat. I controlled everything? I worked nights, paid bills, packed lunches, remembered dentist appointments. Stood in grocery store aisles after 12-hour shifts trying to decide which cereal Emma liked that week. Daniel did not feel controlled. He felt exposed. And there is nothing more dangerous than a man who thinks truth is an attack. I climbed down from the attic with the binder under my arm. My legs felt weak, but my mind had become sharp. Pain was still there, but motherhood had pushed it into a corner. Emma came out of her room holding a purple duffel bag. Mom, what's going on? I looked at her small face and felt my whole life split into before and after. Before, I thought I was protecting her from a broken marriage. After, I understood I might be protecting her from her own father. Get your shoes, I said gently. We're leaving now. She looked toward the hallway. Did Dad do something bad? I wanted to lie. Every mother wants to lie when the truth is too heavy for a child. But I had already lived inside too many lies. I could not hand one to my daughter and call it love. He made some very serious mistakes, I said. And I need to keep you safe while adults figure it out. Her eyes filled with tears. Is he mad at me? That question nearly broke me. I knelt in front of her and took both her hands. No, baby. This is not because of you. Not one piece of it. She nodded, but I could see she did not believe me yet. Children always search for themselves inside adult disasters. They think if they had been quieter, sweeter, smarter, easier, maybe the house would not shake. I kissed her forehead and stood up. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it was Daniel. I stared at his name on the screen. For 16 years, that name had meant home. Annoying grocery texts. Pictures from Emma's soccer games. Dumb jokes. Reminders to pick up milk. Now it felt like a threat. I answered, but I did not speak first. His breathing came through the line. Lauren, he said. Where are you? I looked at Emma, then at the front door. Home. Good, he said too quickly. Stay there. I'm coming over so we can talk. My hand tightened around the phone. No. There was a pause. What do you mean no? I mean you don't come here. His voice changed. Not loud yet. Just colder. You're making this worse. I looked down at the binder. No, Daniel. You made it worse when you forged my name. Silence. That silence told me everything. Not confusion. Not shock. Not outrage. Recognition. Then he said, you don't understand what I was trying to fix. I closed my eyes. There it was again. The old trick. Not what I did. What I was trying to fix. As if good intentions could erase forged signatures. As if fear could excuse betrayal. As if our daughter's future was something he could gamble with and explain later. Where is Emma's passport? I asked. His breathing sharpened. Why are you asking that? Where is it? Lauren, don't start acting crazy. That word landed exactly where he wanted it to. Crazy. The word men use when a woman finally sees the pattern. The word they throw like a blanket over evidence, fear, and instinct. But I was done shrinking under words. Answer me, I said. He exhaled slowly. I have it. My eyes moved to Emma. She stood near the stairs with one shoe on, watching me. Why? It's safer with me. No, I said. It is not. Then Daniel said something that made the blood drain from my face. You need to think carefully. Because if you report this, you won't just ruin me. You'll ruin yourself too. I looked at the forged signature again. He was right about one thing. My name was on those documents. My badge would not protect me from questions. My years of service would not erase paper trails. A prosecutor would not care that my husband had smiled while lying to me. They would ask how a police officer did not notice. They would ask why I ignored envelopes. Why I trusted him. Why I never checked the accounts. Why my signature was on loan papers I claimed I never saw. And suddenly I understood the real trap. Daniel had not only betrayed me. He had built a cage with my name on it. I hung up without another word. Then I called Sergeant Mills. He answered on the second ring. Mitchell. I found documents, I said. Loan papers. My forged signature. Payments to Melanie Carter's company. Daniel has Emma's passport. His voice went still. Where are you now? At home. Leaving with Emma. Do not go to your mother's house. I froze. Why? Because that's the first place he'll look. I turned toward the window. Across the street, a white pickup slowed near our mailbox. For 1 second, I thought it was a neighbor. Then the passenger window lowered. Melanie Carter looked directly at my house. My heart slammed once. Hard. She lifted her phone and took a picture. Then the truck rolled forward and disappeared down the street. Emma whispered behind me. Mom? I grabbed the binder, my service weapon, and my daughter's hand. We're going out the back. We crossed the yard, climbed through the side gate, and moved toward the alley behind our house. My hands were steady now. Terrifyingly steady. The kind of steady that comes when fear finally becomes action. At the end of the alley, my neighbor's old fence creaked in the wind. Then my phone lit up with a text from Daniel. You should have stayed out of this. I stared at those 7 words. And for the first time that morning, I said it out loud. This is insane. Not because my husband cheated. Not because he lied. Not because he stole from our life. Because he was no longer trying to hide the danger. He was warning me that I had stepped into it. I pulled Emma closer and kept moving. But as we reached the corner, a black Ford Explorer turned slowly onto the street ahead of us. Daniel's car. And this time, he was not alone. Daniel's Explorer rolled toward the corner like a shadow. For 1 second, I could not hear anything. Not the traffic 2 streets over. Not Emma breathing beside me. Not my own heart hammering against my ribs. All I saw was his windshield. Tinted. Dark. Familiar. The same car we had taken to school plays, grocery runs, weekend breakfasts, and family photos in bluebonnet fields. Now it was crawling toward me like something dangerous. I pulled Emma behind a wooden fence. "Stay low," I whispered. Her fingers dug into my wrist. "Is that Dad?" I looked through a crack in the boards. Daniel's car stopped at the end of the alley. The driver's window lowered halfway. I could not see who sat beside him, but I saw movement in the passenger seat. Someone was with him. Someone leaned forward. Then Daniel's voice came from the street. "Lauren, don't do this." He sounded calm. That scared me more than yelling would have. Because calm meant he still believed he could control me. Calm meant he still thought the right tone, the right words, the right guilt could make me step out from hiding with our daughter beside me. I kept one hand on Emma's shoulder and reached for my radio with the other. "Unit 27 to dispatch," I said softly. "I need immediate assistance near my residence. Possible domestic threat. My minor child is with me." The dispatcher's voice came back fast. "Copy, Unit 27. Units en route." Daniel must have heard the radio crackle. His door opened. I drew my weapon, keeping it low. That was the worst moment of my life. Not finding him with Melanie. Not seeing my forged signature. Not hearing him threaten me. The worst moment was realizing I might have to protect my child from the man who taught her to ride a bike. "Daniel," I called out, "stay where you are." He stepped around the front of the Explorer with both hands raised. He looked exhausted. His hair was messy. His shirt was wrinkled. For a brief second, he looked like my husband again, like a man who had made a terrible mistake and finally understood the damage. Then he spoke. "You're scaring Emma." And just like that, I saw the manipulation. He was not worried about her fear. He was using it. Emma whimpered behind me. I did not look back. If I looked at her face, I knew I might break. "No," I said. "You are scaring Emma." His jaw tightened. "Come home. We can fix this. You took her passport. I'm her father. You forged my name. I was trying to save us." The words landed flat and empty. There was no saving in what he had done. There was only gambling with my credit, my house, my career, and our daughter's safety. He had taken every piece of trust one gave him and turned it into paperwork I could not escape. The passenger door opened. Melanie stepped out. She wore sunglasses even though the morning was still gray. Her red dress from the traffic stop was gone. Now she had on jeans, boots, and a white blouse, like she had dressed for a business meeting instead of a family collapse. She smiled at me. "Lauren, this doesn't have to get ugly." I almost laughed. Ugly had already arrived. It arrived when my husband drove out of a motel. It arrived when my name appeared in a fraud alert. It arrived when my daughter's passport disappeared from my own home. "You need to leave," I said. Melanie tilted her head. "You really don't know what you're dealing with." Daniel turned toward her sharply. "Stop talking." But this time, I wanted her to keep going. Because people like Melanie always believed they were smarter than everyone else. They spoke when they should stay quiet. They revealed things when they wanted to feel powerful. So I stayed silent. She took one slow step forward. "Your husband owes money to people who don't care about your badge," she said. "He didn't do all this because of me. He did it because he was already drowning." Daniel's face changed. Real fear flashed across it. Not fear of me. Fear of her words. "What people?" I asked. Melanie smiled again, but her eyes were cold. "Ask him about the investment fund." Daniel lunged toward her. It happened fast. Harris's patrol car screamed around the corner at the same time. Another unit came in behind him. Daniel stopped, but not before Emma saw him move. She cried out, "Dad, stop." That sound tore through me. Daniel froze like her voice had slapped him. Officers moved in. Harris ordered him to step back from Melanie. Daniel obeyed, but his eyes stayed on me. I could see rage under the fear now. Quiet rage. Humiliated rage. The kind that blames the mirror for showing the truth. Within minutes, the street filled with uniforms. Sergeant Mills arrived last, his face grim and controlled. He took one look at Emma, then at me, then at the binder under my arm. "Get the child somewhere safe," he said. A female officer named Ruiz guided Emma toward her patrol car. I watched my daughter climb into the back seat, clutching her purple duffel bag against her chest. She looked so small behind that glass. I wanted to go with her, but Sergeant Mills touched my shoulder. "Mitchell." The binder. I handed it to him. He opened it on the hood of his cruiser. His eyes moved from page to page. Loan documents. Business transfers. My forged signature. Melanie's company. The home equity line of credit. His mouth hardened. Then he looked at Daniel. "Where is the child's passport?" Daniel said nothing. "Daniel," I said, my voice shaking now. "Give me her passport." He stared at the ground. Melanie crossed her arms. And then Harris, who had been searching the Explorer with consent Daniel apparently gave before thinking clearly, lifted a small navy blue booklet from the glove compartment. Emma's passport. My knees almost gave out. Because until that second, some desperate part of me had still hoped there was an explanation. A stupid one. A selfish one. A weak one. But not this. Not my child's passport hidden in his car while he blocked us in an alley with Melanie beside him. Sergeant Mills took the passport and gave it to Ruiz. Then he turned to Daniel. "I think you need to come with us and answer some questions." Daniel's face went pale. "You can't arrest me for having my daughter's passport." "No," Mills said. "But we can start asking why your wife's forged signature appears on financial documents tied to a fraud alert." Melanie's confidence finally cracked. Just a little. She reached for her phone. Ruiz saw it. "Ma'am, keep your hands visible." Melanie rolled her eyes, but she stopped. Daniel looked at me one last time before Harris placed him in the back of the cruiser. His eyes were wet now. For a second, I thought he might apologize. Instead, he said, "You destroyed this family." And there it was. The final gift from a man who could not face himself. He would rather call me cruel than admit he had been dangerous. I did not answer. Because for the first time since 2:17 that morning, I understood something clearly. I did not have to defend myself to the person who built the fire. My job was to get my child out of the smoke. They took Daniel to the station. Melanie was detained for questioning. Emma and I were driven to a safe location connected through the department, not my mother's house, not anywhere Daniel would expect. By noon, my phone had 37 missed calls. Daniel. Daniel's mother. A number from Dallas. Another unknown number. Then a voicemail from our mortgage company. I played it with Sergeant Mills sitting across from me. The woman's voice was professional and cold. She said there had been a pending foreclosure review on our home. She said notices had been mailed. She said final action could begin within days. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles hurt. Then she said one more thing. A payment arrangement had been submitted that morning, using my name, and the electronic signature came from my home computer. The words hit me like a second arrest. Using my name, from my home computer. For a moment, I just stared at the phone. The safe room felt colder than before. Emma sat on a couch behind me, wrapped in a gray blanket. A children's cartoon played softly on the television, but she was not watching it. She was watching me. That was what hurt the most. Not the house. Not the money. Not even the signature. It was my daughter learning, in real time, that adults could smile at breakfast and still destroy everything by lunch. Sergeant Mills held out his hand. "Let me hear it again." I replayed the voicemail. The mortgage representative repeated the same words in the same calm voice. Pending foreclosure review. Final action within days. Payment arrangement submitted that morning. Electronic signature. Home computer. My stomach turned. "I wasn't home," I said. Mills looked at me. "I know. Emma and I left through the back." "I know. So either Daniel did it before he came after us, or someone else had access," he said. We both went quiet. Melanie. The white pickup outside my house. The photo through the window. The way she smiled like this was all a business meeting. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Mills nodded once. Answer it. Speaker. I tapped the screen. For 2 seconds, nobody spoke. Then Melanie's voice came through, smooth and low. You're making emotional decisions, Lauren. I looked at Mills. He was already recording. You submitted something to my mortgage company, I said. She gave a tiny laugh. You should be grateful. That arrangement bought you time. You used my name. No, she said. Your husband used your name. I only helped him fix a problem. There it was again. Fix. That word had become a dirty thing. What problem? I asked. Melanie sighed, like I was too slow to understand simple math. Daniel borrowed from the wrong people. Then he borrowed again to cover the first mistake. Then he used your equity because banks trust stable married homeowners more than desperate men. My chest tightened. I looked toward Emma. She had pulled the blanket to her chin. How much? I asked. Melanie paused. That pause told me the number would hurt. More than the house is worth, she said. The room tilted. Mills's face hardened. I pressed my palm against the table and forced myself to breathe. How much, Melanie? She clicked her tongue softly. Enough that walking away might be cheaper than fighting. I closed my eyes. There are moments when panic begs you to collapse. It whispers that the truth is too big. It tells you to sit down and let someone else decide. But I had let Daniel decide for too long. And every decision he made had cost me more. I'm not walking away, I said. Her voice cooled. You might not have a choice. Then the line went dead. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Mills finally said, that was good. I almost laughed. Good. My marriage was burning, my house might be gone, and a woman connected to my husband's fraud had just threatened me politely over the phone. But he meant the recording. Evidence. A word that had saved strangers for years. Now I needed it to save me. By that afternoon, everything moved fast. Detectives took my statement. A financial crimes investigator reviewed the binder. An attorney from the department's legal referral list called me back and told me not to sign anything, not to speak to Daniel alone, and not to let guilt push me into silence. I wrote those words down. Do not let guilt push me into silence. Because guilt was already trying. It came in strange ways. It came when Emma asked if she could text her dad. It came when Daniel's mother left a voicemail sobbing. It came when I remembered him dancing with Emma in the kitchen. It came when I wondered how much I had missed. But then I looked at the documents again. My name copied onto lies. My income inflated. My credit used like a spare key. My daughter's passport hidden in his glove compartment. Guilt left after that. Not completely, but enough for me to stand. Near sunset, Mills came back into the room with Detective Alvarez from Financial Crimes. Alvarez was younger than I expected, with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She placed 3 printed pages on the table. We found the investment fund Melanie mentioned, she said. I leaned forward. The company name meant nothing to me. Something clean and polished, the kind of name made to sound safe. Daniel had invested client money into it. Then personal money. Then borrowed money. Then money tied to her home. Alvarez tapped the last page. This is where it gets worse. I almost whispered, of course it does. She looked at me with sympathy, but she did not soften the truth. Your husband may have used your position as a police officer to make lenders believe the household income was secure and low risk. The air left my lungs. So my badge helped him? On paper, she said. Yes. I felt sick. For 11 years, that badge had meant service. Long nights. Missed birthdays. Bruises I never talked about. Fear I swallowed so other people could feel safe. Daniel had turned it into collateral. That was when the door opened. Officer Ruiz stepped inside. Lauren, she said gently, Daniel is asking to speak to you. Mills immediately shook his head. No. But I looked at Ruiz. How does he seem? She hesitated. Scared. I thought about the man in the alley. The calm voice. The blame. The passport. Then I thought about Emma. No, I said. Anything he has to say can go through my attorney. Mills gave one firm nod. That tiny nod felt like a hand on my back. For the first time all day, I had made a choice that belonged only to me. No begging. No explaining. No private room where he could twist the story. No soft voice asking me to save him one more time. That night, Emma and I slept in separate beds at the safe location. Or tried to sleep. Around midnight, I heard her crying quietly. I went to her room and lay beside her. She whispered, "Are we poor now?" The question broke something open in me. I pulled her close. "I don't know what we are right now," I said. "But we are safe. And we are together." She cried into my shirt. I stared at the dark ceiling and finally let my own tears fall. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet grief leaving my body in pieces. I had spent years believing love meant trust. That night, I started understanding something different. Love without honesty is not safety. And trust without boundaries is just an unlocked door. Sometime after 1 in the morning, my phone lit up on the nightstand. A message from an unknown number. No words. Just a photo. It was my house. Taken from across the street. And every light inside was on. The photo made my blood go cold. My house stood in the dark with every light blazing. Kitchen. Living room. Upstairs hallway. Emma's bedroom. Even the porch light glowed against the empty driveway. It looked less like a home and more like a warning. I sat up so fast Emma stirred beside me. "Mom," she whispered. "It's okay," I said. But my voice did not sound okay. I slipped out of bed and carried the phone into the hallway. My hands were steady, but my stomach felt hollow. Whoever sent that photo wanted me to know something simple. They could get close. They knew where I lived. They knew I was not there. They wanted me thinking about what else they could touch. I called Sergeant Mills. He answered like he had not slept either. "Mitchell, I just got a photo of my house," I said. "All the lights are on." His voice sharpened. "Do not go there." "I'm not." "Send it to me." I forwarded the picture, then leaned against the wall and closed my eyes. For one stupid second, I thought about the little things inside that house. Emma's art projects. My father's old watch. The mug Daniel gave me on our 10th anniversary. Then I hated myself for thinking about mugs. But grief is strange like that. It reaches for small things when big things are burning. Mills called back 3 minutes later. "Patrol is heading there now," he said. "Stay where you are." I looked toward Emma's door. She saw enough today. "I know." "No, Sergeant." She saw her father corner us in an alley. He went quiet. Then he said, softer, "You did the right thing." I wanted that to comfort me. It did not. Because doing the right thing does not undo what happened. It does not erase a child's fear. It does not bring back the woman who once believed her husband was simply tired, busy, distracted, under pressure. That woman was gone. And I was starting to understand she had been gone for longer than one night. Around 2:30 a.m., Mills called again. "Someone entered your house," he said. My throat tightened. "Daniel?" "We don't know yet." Back door was forced. Office drawers were opened. Attic access was pulled down. The binder. They had come back for the binder. But the binder was with financial crimes now. For the first time all night, I felt something close to relief. Then Mills added, "Your home computer is missing." I closed my eyes. Of course. The electronic signature. The mortgage arrangement. The forged documents. The passwords Daniel had probably saved. That computer was not just a machine. It was a loaded weapon with my name typed into it. Was anything else taken? I asked. Hard to say. We'll need you to make a list later. Later. That word sounded impossible. I sat on the hallway floor with my back against the wall. I was still wearing the department sweatpants Ruiz had brought me. My hair smelled like smoke from stress, though nothing around me had burned. A few hours later, just after sunrise, Detective Alvarez arrived. She carried a folder and 2 coffees. I did not drink mine. She sat across from me in the small interview room at the safe location and opened the folder. We got preliminary information from Melanie's phone. I leaned forward. She talked. Not exactly. But she got careless. Alvarez turned a page toward me. There were screenshots of messages between Melanie and Daniel. Some were cold, businesslike. Others were personal in a way that made my skin crawl. "Baby, trust me. After this, we start over. Lauren won't know until it's done." I looked away. Not because of the affair. That pain was almost simple now. The money was worse. The planning was worse. The way he discussed my life like a locked door he had found a key for was worse. Alvarez tapped one message. Read this one. I forced myself to look. Daniel had written. She signs things without reading when she's exhausted. I can make it look normal. My face went numb. There are sentences that destroy a marriage more completely than cheating ever could. That was one of them. He had studied my fatigue, noticed my long shifts, my trust, my habit of signing school forms at midnight, my weakness after work. Then he used it. Alvarez watched me carefully. I'm sorry. I shook my head. Don't be. Keep going. She nodded. We also found references to a man in Dallas. First name Victor. Possibly connected to the investment fund. Melanie seemed afraid of him. Afraid how? Alvarez slid another screenshot across the table. Melanie had written, Victor won't wait. If Lauren starts digging, we all lose. Daniel replied, then make sure she stops. I read it twice. The room became very quiet. I wanted to believe he meant paperwork. Calls. Questions. Reports. But after the alley, after the photo, after the break-in, I no longer had the luxury of gentle interpretations. What does that mean? I asked. Alvarez did not pretend. We don't know yet. That was honest. And terrifying. By late morning, my attorney filed for an emergency protective order and temporary custody restrictions. Daniel's attorney called it overreaction. His mother called it cruelty. One of his friends texted me that every marriage has hard seasons. I deleted that message without answering. A hard season is bills, grief, illness, stress. A hard season is not forged signatures and missing passports. A hard season is not another woman taking photos of your house. At noon, Emma asked to call Daniel. I sat beside her on the couch. Not right now, I said. Tears filled her eyes. But he's my dad. I know. Does he still love me? I felt the words catch in my throat. Because the answer was not simple. Maybe Daniel loved her in the broken way selfish people love. Maybe he loved the idea of being her father. Maybe he loved her when love did not cost him honesty. But my daughter did not need adult explanations. She needed ground beneath her feet. Yes, I said carefully. But love does not make every choice safe. She stared at me. I pulled her close. And my job is to choose safety. That evening, Mills came back with news. They had found Daniel's phone records. He had called Melanie 7 times after the traffic stop. Then Victor twice. Then an unknown number registered to a private security company in Dallas. My stomach tightened. Private security? Mills nodded. Could be nothing. Could be intimidation. I almost smiled at that. Nothing had stopped being nothing at 2:17 in the morning. Then he handed me a sealed evidence bag. Inside was my father's old watch. I stared at it. We found this in Daniel's car, Mills said. In a bag with jewelry, cash, and 3 external drives. I could barely speak. He took that from the house? Yes. My father had worn that watch for 30 years. He gave it to me 6 weeks before he died. Daniel knew what it meant to me. And still, he took it. Not because it was worth much. Because it would hurt. That was when the last piece of love inside me finally went quiet. I looked at Mills and said, I want to press every charge I can. He nodded once. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, the message came from Daniel. Only one sentence. Check Emma's backpack before you let the police search anything else. I did not touch Emma's backpack. Not with one finger. Not after everything Daniel had done. Not after he sent that message like a warning. Not after I finally understood how far he would go. I walked into the small bedroom where Emma was sitting on the bed. Her purple duffel bag was open beside her. Her school backpack leaned against the chair near the window. Blue canvas. Silver zipper. A little keychain shaped like a star. It looked innocent. That was what made me sick. Emma looked up from her phone. Mom? I forced my face to stay calm. Did Dad put anything in your backpack? She frowned. No, I don't think so. Did anyone touch it? She thought for a second. Dad picked it up yesterday morning. Before school. He said it was too heavy. My chest tightened. Yesterday morning. Before I ever stopped his car. Before I knew about Melanie. before I knew about the loans. He had already prepared something. I stepped back into the hallway and called Detective Alvarez. Daniel just texted me about Emma's backpack, I said. I haven't touched it. Her voice changed immediately. Good. Keep everyone out of that room. Within 20 minutes, Alvarez and Sergeant Mills were there. Emma sat with Officer Ruiz in another room while they photographed the backpack from every angle. I stood in the doorway with my arms folded tight across my chest, feeling like my own life had become evidence. Alvarez opened the zipper with gloved hands. Inside were normal things at first. A math workbook, a library book, a pencil case, a crumpled granola bar wrapper. Then she reached into the small inside pocket. Her face went still. She pulled out a black flash drive, then an envelope, then a folded piece of paper with my name written across it. My knees weakened. Mills opened the envelope. Inside were copies of bank transfer receipts, a prepaid card, and 3 pages that looked like instructions for moving money through accounts connected to Melanie's company. At the bottom of one page was my forged signature. Again. Only this time, it was placed where nobody would expect it. In my daughter's backpack. Alvarez unfolded the paper. She read silently first. Then she looked at me. What does it say? I asked. She hesitated. That hesitation scared me more than the answer. It's written like a confession, she said. The room seemed to lose air. She placed the paper on the table and let me read it without touching it. The words looked like mine if someone had only studied my reports and copied the rhythm badly. It said I had helped Daniel move money. It said I had used my position to protect him. It said I panicked when Melanie threatened to expose us. And the last line made my vision blur. Daniel did this for our family, and I agreed to all of it. I stepped back. For a second, I thought I might be sick. He had not only stolen from me. He had not only lied to me. He had not only used my name. He had tried to turn me into the criminal. And he had hidden the lie inside our child's school bag. That was the moment every leftover piece of doubt died. No more wondering if he was scared. No more asking if he still loved us. No more searching for the old Daniel inside the new one. The old Daniel had become the mask. This was the man underneath. Alvarez looked at Mills. This helps us, she said quietly. He just proved intent. I almost laughed through tears. Daniel thought he was burying me. Instead, he had handed them the shovel. The next 48 hours moved like a storm. Daniel was questioned again. Melanie tried to deny everything, then changed her story when detectives showed her the messages and the backpack evidence. Victor from Dallas was harder to reach, but by then the case had grown bigger than my marriage. It was no longer just about a cheating husband. It was about forged loans, hidden debt, false signatures, intimidation, and a network of people who thought desperate families were just paperwork waiting to be exploited. The mortgage company froze the foreclosure review while investigators examined the fraud. My attorney filed emergency motions. My name was not cleared overnight, but for the first time, the truth had direction. Daniel's mother called me 14 times. I answered once. She cried and said, "He made mistakes, Lauren. But you're destroying his life." I listened until she finished. Then I said, "No. I'm finally refusing to let him destroy mine." And I hung up. It felt cruel. It also felt clean. A month later, Emma and I moved out of the house. Not because Daniel won. Not because Melanie scared me. Not because I gave up. We left because every room had become a memory with teeth. The kitchen where he kissed my forehead. The office where he hid documents. The driveway where I used to feel safe. I did not want Emma growing up inside walls that had heard too many lies. We rented a small townhouse on the north side of San Antonio. It had old carpet, a narrow kitchen, and a backyard barely big enough for 2 chairs. But the locks were new. The bills were in my name only. And every document I signed, I read slowly, even when I was tired. Especially when I was tired. Daniel eventually took a plea deal on several charges related to forgery and financial fraud. Melanie cooperated after she realized Victor would not protect her. The full investigation continued for months, and some answers came too late to matter. But I learned something about answers. Sometimes they do not heal you. Sometimes they only prove you were right to leave. Emma started therapy. So did I. At first, she barely spoke. Then one evening, while we were washing dishes, she looked at me and said, "I miss who Dad used to be." I turned off the water. "So do I said. She looked surprised. I dried my hands and pulled her close. "But we can miss someone and still stay safe from them." She cried then. So did I. Not because everything was fixed. Because we were finally telling the truth without whispering. It has been almost 2 years since that traffic stop. I am still a police officer. I still work nights sometimes. I still feel my stomach tighten when I see a black Ford Explorer in my rearview mirror. But I am not the woman who sat in that patrol car pretending one envelope was just a bank mistake. I check what has my name on it now. I ask questions when something feels wrong. I do not apologize for needing proof. And when someone tells me I am overreacting, I remember the motel, the forged signature, the passport, the backpack, and the way my husband looked at me through the rearview mirror. Not with love. With calculation. That was the hardest lesson. The person you trust most can still make choices that hurt you. Love does not cancel red flags. Marriage does not erase your right to protect yourself. And a calm voice can still be lying. I lost my house. I lost my marriage. I lost the version of my life I thought I had built. But I kept my daughter. I kept my name. And in the end, that was the only home I truly had to save.